We've read through some praises on the cover and back. We've read through the prologue. Now let's truly begin this book with the first chapter, called You'll Come Crawling Back. Ooh, what a title. It was the summer of 1990. I was 19 years old. The head of the eating disorder unit at the Midway Medical Center in Los Angeles beseeched and berated me as I signed my own discharge papers. "You'll come crawling back," he said. "You're sick. We've seen this 100 times or more. You need to be here. If you leave, yada 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 yada." And trigger warning for those who have gone through similar mental health problems as our author, though I'm sure you will be able to relate in an empowering way with our dear Sadhvi ji. I had completed less than a week of the 6-week intensive inpatient program after years of spending day after day stuffing myself in order to vomit again. Bulimia is the willing, sort of, conscious, sort of, controlled, not really, purposeful vomiting after ingesting large quantities of food. I wasn't even interested in the food. I just needed something to throw up. Sometimes food, sometimes gallons of water. My psychiatrist had put me in the hospital for the second time in 4 months. The administrator continued in his rote administrative voice, cautioning me about the illusion of recovery and making sure I understood that the hungry demon of bulimia sat heavily on my shoulder and would swallow me whole again, most likely soon. My only chance for survival, he made crystal clear, was to stay. But I couldn't. Nurses peering into open bathrooms to be sure I wasn't peeing. I was peeing and not throwing up. Never having even the privacy of a closed door had rendered me exhausted and constipated. I felt like someone in a prison scene out of a Dickens novel or a group therapy scene from One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. This was not the place for me. I had to leave. I told him the day before, "You can't. It's a 6-week program. You're sick and you need to be here." Finally, he acquiesced. But as I filled out the forms and checked the boxes about taking full responsibility for my own life, not holding the hospital liable, and acknowledging I was going against his professional advice, his voice changed. "I guarantee you'll be crawling back, crawling on your hands and knees." I walked out onto Olympic Boulevard knowing I would never go back there, and I knew I was in deep trouble. I had grown up in a land of privilege, in the coveted world of Hollywood. We lived in Studio City, just up the hill from Universal Studios. I went to a private prep school with actors and actresses and the children of actors, actresses, directors, and producers. I even auditioned for commercials when I was in elementary school and had a full set of headshots taken of my innocent face, looking sometimes giggly and sometimes sultry. I spent innumerable hours exclaiming, "Moist and chewy, it's delicious," in every possible permutation of speed, tone, emphasis, and pitch as I joined a child star friend for commercial acting classes at his house. I wasn't supposed to be in this much trouble. This was the summer of 1990. I had just finished my first year at Stanford and had spent the last few months in and out of eating disorder clinics. Over the next 6 years, I did everything I could to heal. I went to therapy, sometimes daily with a psychiatrist, sometimes weekly with an analyst. I took Prozac and Zoloft, selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, SSRIs, that have shown great potential for treating depression, anxiety, addictions, and eating disorders. I hit baseball bats into my pillows until my arms felt like noodles, envisioning my father, who had sexually abused and then abandoned me. I recorded my dreams and then tried to make sense of them. I completed my bachelor's degree and the first half of a PhD program in psychology. I went to Overeaters Anonymous, the 12-step program for people with addictions to eating, or to starving themselves, or to eating and then throwing up. Hi, I'm bulimic, I would say at the start of the few meetings I attended before realizing it was not the right program for me. The required admission of my own powerlessness and surrender to a higher power gave me exactly the excuse I needed to continue to throw up. My higher power was taking a nap and didn't come through for me. I'd say to my sponsor, not my fault. I started and then quit smoking cigarettes, as it seemed the thing to do in recovery, but actually nauseated me. I dated continuously, looking for a father in a range of 20-something-year-old boys. I got married to a super smart man who seemed to know me better than I knew myself, and I still suffered. Some of it helped, the therapy for sure. Knowing the reason I wanted to eat the entire world and throw it back up was an important first step. Realizing that the dissociated numbness I yearn for in Sara Lee cheesecakes, my apologies, and Mrs. Fields cookies was not due to being crazy or sick, but a normal and natural response to unexamined trauma gave me the courage to explore and be present with the trauma, so I didn't have to eat my way into a catatonic stupor. Knowing that the hatred I had toward my body was due to this very body having been the object of abuse gave me a vocabulary to address myself and the problem. I learned to say, you can't eat his love or throw up your pain, no matter how sick you get, no matter how many hospitals you get admitted to, Manny isn't coming back. And sometimes it worked. The bulimia and my life became manageable, and frequently I even felt happy. The occasional relapse into vomiting didn't worry me, and I was usually able to bounce back without descending too deeply into the hell of self-loathing. Eating was still an effort, but I held myself on the okay side of pathology by a tightly wound coil of restriction and control. My biological father was still a huge trigger, but unfortunately, his name didn't come up that often. I'd learned to navigate my way through life without thinking about him, other than the occasional fit of sobs when my husband, Jim, left for work, as though I were 3 and watching my father drive away forever, rather than 23 and watching my partner head off to work. Movies that ended in death or separation, AT&T commercials with the slogan "Reach out and touch someone," and summer camp goodbyes elicited not mere teary-eyed bittersweetness, but an abject, inconsolable misery. I also cried in yoga class in Shavasana, the final Shavasana, the final pose of a session, lying like a corpse, still and silent on my back. Gentle sobs racked my body, and I couldn't lie still. And every time Jim rolled over in bed, shaking the mattress, I woke up startled, unable to get back to sleep. Frequently, anorexia and sometimes bulimia, my condition combined the two, are much more about control than about food. When we feel out of control in life, we turn to something we can control: our food, our weight, our body. Whenever I loosened the vice-like grip I had on my food intake, I would slip back into self-starvation or binging and vomiting. Starving myself or throwing up was my response of choice to stress. Continued struggle and low-grade suffering seemed like something I would face forever. I had heard everywhere, from in 12-step meetings to at the hospital, that struggles of addiction, depression, and childhood trauma are always with us. We can gain control over some of our lives and not engage in the addictive behaviors, but the internal mindset and emotional patterns are always there. The hungry ghosts may not gobble us alive, but it will be there forever, occasionally whispering insidiously in our ear. I knew, even more surely than I knew the day I left Midway Medical Center, that I would never be on my hands and knees, desperate for the help of that kind of hospital. I had my life together enough. I was getting straight A's in my PhD program and successfully navigating my way through early childhood. Didn't everyone cry during AT&T commercials? That is the end of chapter 1, which is short and to the point. I imagine that reading may have brought up many emotions for people, since it's so real and comes from the experience of someone who definitely knows what it's like to experience the struggles of having a body and mind in this world. If that feeling has arose for you in any capacity, I hope that you know that you're not alone, in that there are many people that experience the same things, just in different ways. And this book would not be written if it didn't have a happy ending. So, as you can see from our author, smiling away as flower petals are floating about the air, know that we are just at the beginning of an uncomfortable yet transcendental journey as we go from the reality of suffering to the surreality of transcendence. If you are going through such things, do not hesitate to go through conventional means of help like therapy or group settings or any kind of medication or hospitals. As our author wrote, that they are certainly helpful and they begin to get us on the right path. But ultimately, our journey is more spiritual than mental, and there is something that goes beyond those things that complements them all. If you are inspired by that possibility, then I hope to see you next time when we continue reading from the second chapter now of Hollywood to the Himalayas, a journey of healing and transformation.